So one thing we know about brains is that our brains actually don't like a lot of uncertainty. And what our brains tend to do is that when we're uncertain about something, we tend to start filling in the blanks. And I think we can all relate to this. If you can imagine you've sent a text off to a friend and then there's no reply. So there's a bit of uncertainty there, you don't know what's going on. And so your mind will start filling in the blanks. And the blanks could sound like, she's so rude, she never has time for me. Or the blanks could sound like, oh, last time I said that, maybe she's upset with me. So our brains have the tendency to fill in the blanks in times of uncertainty. And one of my favourite authors, Brené Brown, shares a story that if we can change the language in our own brain to sound like, the story I'm telling myself is that I've upset my friend, or the story I'm telling myself is that she's too busy for me. We start to recognise that in actual fact it's just a story. We don't really know the details, we don't actually know. And can we start maybe entertaining the idea that we could perhaps get a little bit more comfortable with just being uncertain without knowing? Now, if your brain can be a bit more comfortable without knowing, it certainly then opens you up to not leaping to conclusions and listening to that default story too often. And I can relate to that sort of in my own story, in my own life. For those of you that know me, I'm a terrible chef. I'm a nightmare in the kitchen. I'm a mess. I burn things. And very often I leave a giant mess for my husband. So if I'm working at home during the day, and I might grab some lunch and leave everything scattered and then go back to my laptop and continue my work, I could, at the end of my day, hear my husband come home and hear him maybe crashing in the kitchen, and the story I'm telling myself could sound like, oh, I'm a terrible wife, I'm the worst, oh, he must be so annoyed at me. So what I choose to do is go out to the kitchen and say, oh, look, the story I'm telling myself is that you're really annoyed at me because I don't clean up the kitchen, I'm a real mess. And he could turn around and say, actually, no, I just dropped a saucepan, I'm absolutely fine, don't worry about it. Or he could say, oh, no, I've just had a really bad day. And then it's like, oh, so he's not upset with me. So the story you're telling yourself is a great sentence to remember. Now, the other thing to note is that the story that we tell ourselves usually comes from two different viewpoints. And one is a viewpoint of shame. I'm below this person, I'm so bad, I get everything wrong. That's one story. The other viewpoint that we tend to start telling ourselves is one of judgment. I'm above that person, they are so bad, they never listen to me, they never take time, they're too busy. So those two default stories will tend to start taking the brain into that emotional roller coaster. So I just wanted to touch on that idea for now and get you used to the idea of asking yourself, like, what is my default story when I don't know what's going on? And maybe starting to ask yourself the question, do I commonly use that story when I'm in a place of uncertainty? And maybe would I be more comfortable, or can I get more comfortable with just simply saying to myself, like, I actually don't know what's going on. And saying the sentence, the story I'm telling myself is this, can help open up the doorway to being a bit more comfortable with just not knowing. And maybe asking yourself the question, what would the voice of kindness have to say? What would the voice of courage or encouragement have to say right now? If you can ask yourself that question, that can help with those default stories.